Rich guy makes expensive toy that implodes and kills him and his clients. The end.
Under the docks, yeah, under the docks. Buried deep, but we're breaking the locks. Footage got clipped, they erased all the shots. Stay connected dots. Under the docks, under the docks, yeah, under the docks. Yeah, under the docks.
It's just another mainstream Monday. You know what I'm saying? It's Under the Docks. We're back. Paranoid American, Sean, Chris. And we're going to give you some of that TikTok-ish feel today. Let's go.
And what is Mainstream Monday?
Well, Mainstream Monday is where we go through the most popular documentaries out there, the things that are going viral, the things that are trending on TikTok and Instagram. We check those docs out so you don't have to, maybe, because some of them we're going to tell you probably don't, you could just listen to us for 30 minutes instead of watching an hour and a half, an hour and 50-minute documentary. Make it a little easier for you.
Okay, so agreed. So it's the same thing that we do with conspiracy documentaries that are like 4 or 5 or 7 or 12 hours long. So if you like this kind of content, you should definitely check out our reviews of Zeitgeist and Loose Change and Waco and a whole bunch of other ones.
And today we got Titan, the OceanGate disaster, a 2025 film directed by Mark Monroe, and it was basically narrated by family members of the staff, the former staff, people that were together. If you don't remember the Titan, it was captured our hearts and our attention. And in 2023, where they submerged to go looking for the Titanic, and unfortunately imploded. And there was a search for the recovery. And then I think it was about a month or so. And then they found it all. And here we are. Now we get the inside scoop on the former people that were scorned, that maybe we don't know if they were scorned, if they're telling the truth, or they just really hated the guy. But anyways, they get to tell their side of the story because the other people unfortunately passed away.
I think I can break this one down real quickly, real easily. Rich guy makes expensive toy that implodes and kills him and his clients. The end.
All right, folks, you're here to hear first, man. Come back for another Under the
We'll see the next one. Yeah, no, it's interesting how they got there, and it's interesting to see everyone's reactions. It almost looked like this slow, expensive train moving, and everyone's like, "Man, that's not going to go well." And the guy that's like driving the train bought the train and owns the train and owns the train company. So there's really nobody on the planet that can tell this guy to stop what he's doing.
Plotting the course. We'll piggyback off what you said. Like, I kind of see him as the billionaire, like America, right? The poster boy for what they were saying America is. They even say once in the clip, I think the lady was like, talking about Elon Musk and all these other people. He's like, they're big swinging dicks, and that's what he wanted to be, a big swinging dick. And that was seeming to be the pissing contest of the billionaires of like, oh, you got this angle of SpaceX? Okay, well, I'm gonna get the submarine bottom of the ocean, same thing as space, or maybe it is space. That's a whole topic for another day. But I think that it was this poster child of what these radical billionaire Americans are about.
Yeah, and there was a few different clips where he's comparing himself to people like Elon and especially James Cameron, because apparently the only other person that's ever tried to do what this guy's doing for as long as he has is James Cameron, or at least in his mind. So these are the people that he's comparing himself to, are titans of industry that you've heard their names already. And then you're like, wait, what was that guy's name from OceanGate again? And being only recognizable because of how horrible everything ended for you. It's not necessarily the same level of James Cameron and Elon Musk.
That's for sure. Like, you're not getting the same limelight. You're there in the limelight for sure, but not for the same reasons. It shows a lot of incompetence, or at least that's kind of how the film delves into it. I'll give a brief timeline for anybody that doesn't know about this, which you haven't. If you don't know about this, I mean, maybe you just like focus on one thing, or you play Dungeons and Dragons or watch football or something like that, and you're in your room by yourself. But here's a brief timeline. In 2009, OceanGate was founded by Stockton Rush. In 2015, the design concept for the Titan submergible starts taking shape. 2018 to 2021, OceanGate conducts several test dives where the Titan submerges, some of which reveal significant design flaws. And we're gonna stop right there. So between that time, like they get this hype in the film where hey, we're going to do this. You get everybody on board. People were like, yeah, I took this job. I quit my other job, even though I was making significantly less, because this is my ideal dream job of looking for the Titanic, doing something historic that nobody else has ever done. But in this time frame, this is when they kind of start getting some problems, because they made this vessel out of carbon fiber, which was not necessarily the standard at the time. So there was a lot of like classification issues, and people were like pushing Stockton to kind of bend a little bit, I would say, but he was very like gun-ho of we're doing it this way.
Pun not intended. Because I guess the ultimate thing here is that the carbon fiber hull is a big deal, since in theory it costs way less to transport. It's easier to float around and push around. And that essentially you're just like trying to push it underwater, as opposed to worrying about these big, heavy pieces of metal that are incredibly cost prohibitive to move across the world for different reasons. So they make it out of carbon fiber, and everyone's telling them this shouldn't be done. This can't be done. This isn't what carbon fiber is for. And he's basically like, screw you. You guys don't understand. I'm making waves here. Like, I'm actually trying to innovate, and I don't need this negativity. I don't need you bringing down the tone in the room. So it sort of like turns into this guy's pet project, where he's going to use this as a literal vehicle to become a great. And everyone did see this as historic, and everyone was kind of drinking that Kool-Aid. Everyone that ends up joining this company more or less drinks the Kool-Aid, and it's only a matter of time before it's like, whoa, this Kool-Aid's a little stronger than I thought it was.
I think also Stockton Rush was this like punk rock billionaire, like, I'm not going to do it the normal way. There's a different way to look at things. So it kind of people gravitated towards that, until you realize like, oh, he really maybe doesn't know what he's talking about. Maybe he really is insane. Like when he doesn't care about the problems.
It's you would call it like an industry disruptor. I'm going to disrupt this industry. And I guess the ultimate problem was that it's hard to disrupt the physical effects of water pressure on a carbon fiber hull. And everyone except for him ultimately knew that was going to be some kind of a problem. So, I mean, that was like the ultimate downfall, right? Is this one guy was just going against every bit of advice he got from anyone he ever hired, from third parties, and that this was basically self-funded, that you can't take this away from him, because he's technically not doing anything illegal.
Yeah, because you can bring people down in a submarine of your own. They were even talked about that. Like when they needed the classification of it, they were like, well, you can bring your buddies down to the ocean and implode. There's nothing illegal about that.
Like me and you could make something over a weekend and pull it down in a lake. And there's not necessarily anything. It's just the second you start charging money and offer it as a service, now you've got to register it and have it inspected by all these third parties. So he was kind of running this thing as a like, hey, are you my buddy? Well, here, I'll bring my buddy down. There's no waivers. Like, there's nothing that you sign. You just get in, I guess.
Yeah, just hop in. You're good. And they've had a couple successful missions, which had questions, but they're one super great mission that they got great footage. Some of the Titanic, where like they kind of gave them the hype train, really pushed it in and propelled it to the forefront of the mainstream, where now news outlets are picking it up. And this is where I think Stockton's ego took place. Like he was even in an interview, and they were saying like, hey, he's like, yeah, it's pretty much indestructible. Nothing could happen. They're like, hey, isn't that what they said about the Titanic? And he's like, yeah. He just kind of agrees with him and doesn't see the logic in it. And he's so cocky and confident which I kind of get. You do need to be that if you're trying to be on the forefront and groundbreaking. You have to be arrogant in some degrees, but I would think you need to listen to some of your staff. And I also want to like push back a little bit. They kind of painted him, Stockton, as the main villain, and people are like, we just worked there, you know, like what could we do? Like we brought these to his attention. So I do think that people didn't admit that they were blinded a little bit about this rock star mentality too, that they joined to be the people that were able to take people to they were like the first people to bring people to the Titanic and be able to charge them for that.
Well, and everyone kind of admitted that they were taking less than they should have, and they were doing more than they should have. There was a really good example where it's like a house of cards that starts falling, like the old domino rally, because first there's the director of operations that says, "Hey man, before you actually start going down in this thing or having other people go in this thing, we should probably do a safety check, even if we're not getting classified for business or anything, just internally, let's just run a safety check to see if everything's good." And Stockton was getting pissed off about him, keep asking about this. And eventually he's like, whatever, do your report. So the guy does the report and he turns it in and it's like, hey, I don't think this is safe. Here's all my issues with it. And he's fired the next day. He gets called up on like a Zoom meeting with HR and the CEO. So he already knew it was going to be a bad thing. And as soon as he leaves, another guy ends up leaving, director of engineering, because he thinks that it's unsafe. And then at a certain point, Stockton, the CEO, just promotes the HR accountant lady to the lead pilot. Like now she is going to be the lead pilot for this mission. It's going to take people down to replace the director of operations, who's a lifelong submarine pilot, and no director of engineering. Like she's the thing. She's included on all these like high level meetings and stuff. And she's kind of admitting that she was already out of her league, not just being a pilot, but being on like the C-suite. And that was kind of what Stockton was trying to do. He was trying to show that he's got this operational company, even though he completely slashes the engineering and operations department. So now it's just him running his own company with like a few people hanging on to the side.
That's kind of one of the things that underlines in this film. That's like, there's another layer to it, is where it's kind of the corporate side of it, how business is run sometimes in America. And working at places, I could agree to some of it where you're like, pointing out problems, and then because money's invested here or they have a dream or an idea, whatever problem that you see, it's, you know, blinders are on where they're like, no, it's good, we're good. Like at my company right now, we're switching over to production, and you bring up ideas like, hey man, you're going to have problems. 20 years experience, bud. I'm not saying I know everything, but I've seen these things happen before. And you're going to have hiccups. Here's the way you go around it. And they go, nah, no thanks. We're going to have to spend more money if we do that. And then in the end, you actually do spend double the money that you were actually in the first time being like, if we change this, we'll spend a little bit of money here. But now we're spending double because we made the mistake and now we're digging out of it.
But it's a tale as old as time itself, because it's something that you learn early on in any career, that if you show up at the new job and you just immediately start pointing out like, hey, this is kind of broken and this shouldn't be, like, every single person has got some kind of like, they've worked on that thing. So now it's like you're criticizing everyone's work and you don't even know what's going on yet. Right. So it's a thing that I've had to learn in the past as well, to sometimes, man, there's just like warts that come along with like any job, and you just got to kind of like work around them. This one though, man, it was really interesting because it keeps showing how, so you're saying that I'm going to start as like an HR lady, and now I'm going to be like rising up through the ranks as a test pilot. She's like, I went home that night and filled out my LinkedIn profile and I was out of there. And then eventually they find an intern, a college intern that wasn't even getting paid, it sounded like at first. And then now she is going to take over all of those different roles that we just sort of mentioned, which is another, I guess, facet of modern American business, right? You literally fire like 15 people and then just have one person do all that. And they're essentially there to take the blame for anything that the CEO does wrong.
And also an interesting point of reference of the film was Carl Stanley, who also had made his own like submerged vehicles and was like giving tours of the Bahamas. He went on the Titan, and I thought it was like it perked my ears up when he's like, "Yeah, I was on there, and, a lot of cracking noises," and like that's where it begins to get shaky because he's like, "Yeah, it was a little bit, unsettling," and then a little bit later in the film, I'd say like 20, 30 minutes after that, they were like, "Oh, we found a big crack." And that's when they get a huge problem because there's actually a crack in the vessel, which now you're like, okay, do we spend thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars to repair it or start a new one? And this is during the time of where people are starting to leave because now, after the report has been out, now that we have a crack that shows like, hey, there's something wrong with this vessel. Like maybe we should rework it, do not other ideas. But Stockton is so gun ho of like, we're almost there, that he just starts, leave, fine, quit. I don't care. And you're losing engineers, like the top people, safety people that are actually paying attention to what they're doing, important people navigate. Like you said, you have an HR lady trying to be like, yeah, I'll do it all. Now you have an intern. So you lost your core of experienced people that had a lot, like Navy pilots, like people that had the experience of doing this, to now a bunch of college interns with a broken vessel. And like, how do we kind of like patch it up?
So the whole sequence of events there is pretty simple. They had that very first hole that gets the crack in it, and then they have a second build which is made just for a test build. That one immediately fails its test build. It completely crumbles before it even gets to the depth where the crack started showing up. And then they just make the third one and say, screw it, let's just take this into production. Let's take the one that didn't even work as well as the one we're trying to fix, and just we'll run it. And we're not even going to do a test on it. We're just going to put people in it and send it down. And this is kind of the way that this entire organization operated. And I think the most interesting part is it's not just them sending it down and it comes back up and then they find a crack. They had rigged, and I don't know how standard this is, but because carbon fiber hasn't been used underwater at these kinds of depths, they put all these microphones all throughout the inside of this hull. So as they go down, they got a computer that's recording all these thousands of microphones essentially, and the microphones are picking up the carbon fibers literally snapping or breaking or cracking, right? And if that happens, then overall it's going to be less and less structurally competent. You're like completely destroying the integrity of this hull. So the way that they determine how well the hull is doing is how often they hear it breaking constantly. So the one thought is that as you're going down, like there might be some weak strains in this carbon fiber and they'll all break at first. And that any metal submarine, when you put it down for the first time, it also makes like settling noises, like an old house creaking in the night a little bit. But that at a certain point, all the things that were gonna break already, like have already broken, and then you're just gonna get silence. And that never happens in this entire series where we're going back and watching the test. Every single time they put this submarine down into the water, you're hearing this cracking noise. And right before the main disaster, they heard like a really big snap noise, like something cracking really loud. And every single time, this was like on dive 80, they said. And then on dives 81 and 82, not only was it still cracking, but there was like a ground level. Like now it was cracking constantly at low levels more than it ever had in the first 80 dives. And at this point, Stockton, you can kind of like see this all happen. And he's like, yeah, we're not paying attention to the microphone grid array. What are they, microphones? They don't know. They can't tell me what's innovative. I'm trying to disrupt this industry here. So they just don't pay attention to the one safety mechanism that they had to tell them whether or not the hull was going to stand up or not. And the second that flew out the window, I think that everyone was going to die.
And seeing so many people that were on maybe the previous dives and stuff like that, or people that thought like I could have been on that one, that was interesting to me too. Like where you're seeing these accounts of people like, oh yeah, that could have been me, man. Yeah. Woof. Can't believe we made it. Like that was a peak of the film, because when they actually delve into the actual incident, because they go through the hearing, they actually have a Coast Guard hearing, which I didn't even know that was a thing, man. Like that was interesting to me. I didn't know
there was your tax was paid for that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Texas. We appreciate that. And through this hearing, like, you constantly heard like people saying, "Well, yeah, like we were surprised it made this run, right? We were surprised it made 7 test runs. We were surprised it made 80 test runs." Like they already knew that it was like a matter of time. But the way this film points at to me to its conclusion, it's like this all happened from a billionaire's ego. That's what it kind of summarizes is the ego of Stockton surpassed everything. He was like, I don't need any engineer. I don't need any safety. I don't need any classification. I don't need anybody to tell me anything. The microphone to me was funny, where he's like, come on, man. It's just like, grainy microphone. You have a microphone on, you're going to get like a little bit of like feedback. It's just like, it's normal. Like,
But that was in comparison to 80 other dives that never had that level of grain. So yeah, it was insane. And not to mention too, just as like a frozen cherry on top, they normally took this out in the Bahamas and they kept it in places where ice was never a factor. And right before the final dive, so dive 80, it has this loud snapping noise, and then 81 and 82, it's got this like fuzz now, like of just like a whole bunch of little fibers kind of like breaking in different places. And then it gets frozen. They leave it in some port somewhere, and the water freezes. And you're not supposed to allow wet carbon fiber to freeze because as the water expands, it breaks it apart even more. So all these things happen. Loud snap. All of a sudden, like the microphone grid array is showing the whole thing's basically crumbling. And then on top of that, they let it freeze. And they're still like, let's not change this date. Like we've got this commitment in order to dive and actually see the Titanic. And he didn't want to let go of this arbitrary date that he had sort of established. And because it meant starting all over again from scratch. You probably knew that.
hidden treasures and overboard moments. I'm gonna say there was a hidden treasure here, a couple of hidden treasures to me. It was the insight of kind of understanding how the structure was built, how they did do safety tests, that there was things going on. It wasn't, from the outside looking in, when you're looking at the news reports, it was just like, yeah, some guy was in his backyard and he built a submarine, a billionaire. And then to find out that it was more this huge company that was trying to corner a market and do something different that no one had seen before. I thought it was interesting that they went into detail of how it really imploded, how the structure was slowly deteriorating. And we got to see that. And we got actual engineers and people that worked on it to like explain what was actually happening.
Well, this would have been the dream project if you were in college or it was all theoretical. If you yourself didn't have to go into this thing and there was someone footing the bill for the whole thing, and this is the space that you wanted to be in. So it was like a symbiotic relationship at first, right? Like he was paying for these people to do this job that only in their dreams were they able to get the resources to do what they wanted to do. Even if you're working out of university, which would kind of be the pinnacle of this type of work. So he's just hiring people out of universities, teachers and students alike. Some of them are even just giving them free work. Like one dude showed up and he'd been like a lifelong professor of engineering. And he said that he worked for about 5 days and just helped them build one of the very initial carbon fiber holes for free in exchange for a ticket. So that whenever he got on the iteration that they were going to get to and start bringing it down, that he would be able to take a ride. They didn't go back and get that guy's sort of feedback for it. But I imagine that he's probably also like, damn, that could have been me. I could have been one of the people that died in that thing.
And for me, a overboard moment was like the entire film. Again, I know I make this complaint a lot, but I don't understand why people feel the need to drag things out. This was like, all right, man, like why are we stretching? I like the timeline, but there was a few like where it's like focusing so much. Like I guess they were trying to bring it home with putting so many former employees. Like they had like a lot of shit should have fell on the editing floor and cut out, where they just didn't need every single person like reiterating like, yeah, the safety wasn't good. The safety wasn't good. We had like a good 30 minutes of that where we could have just cut that down to 10, in my opinion. That's just my complaint overall all the time, where you drag stuff out that doesn't need to be dragged out.
I'll push back on that a little bit because I think that the emphasis, it wasn't just like one person saying it over and over again. It was showing you how anyone that had any sort of authority came across this guy. They were like, "Hey, great idea! This is so cool what you're doing. Like, I want to be a part of it." Man, isn't like X, Y, and Z not safe? And it's just like a lot of different people all saying the same thing to just show you that he wasn't being egged on by anyone. He was egging on himself, and he was hyping all these people up. And I can only imagine that even if you're you've been doing this your entire life, and you show up, and this guy's like, "Hey, I'm going to put carbon fiber down to like 4,000 meters under." Even if you're putting the math together in your head, you're like, "Man, that doesn't sound right." Then you're like, "Well, damn, this dude's already doing it. He's got this whole company. He's got all these people working under him. He's got directors of engineering and OP and like news articles, and he's on TV." So there's sort of this submission to authority, like a logical fallacy, just deferring to authority that everyone's fallen victim of nonstop. And I think that the amount of people that got pulled on, like he's essentially like a CEO cult leader, and so many people just wanted to join this cult, even knowing that it seemed a little bit dangerous. So I thought that that was maybe the hidden treasure for me, was the number of different people that they were able to get that are probably watching. You can see behind their eyes, they're like, "Damn, dude, this really could have been me. At any point, I could have been in this sub with this dude, going on this, Titan adventure." And the thing is, they had done it before. This wasn't like the only time they had ever done it. It was just kept getting worse and worse as they went, and it was basically headed for disaster. And I do like how the documentary, it shows you like, here's how and why it happened. Not a mystery. It's not like people are still trying to figure it out today. It's like, because this one dude, the CEO, and his hubris, and the fact that he was using this legal workaround that you can bring your buddies with some beers in your homemade submarine and have a grand old time. Like, he was exploiting that at this like top level of being this company.
It's about that time. No pun intended. Sink or swim.
Oh, I gotta say swim, man. I think that if you care at all about this whole event, you get the insight from the people inside of it. You hear the exact audio results. You can hear the snapping and the cracking, all that for yourself. And it's kind of rare that a documentary is able to be shot from the inside out. They got like insider perspective on this versus a whole bunch of speculation being pieced together from the outside, like most true crime kind of documentaries. So I think that it's well worth watching if you care at all about that. If you don't care about why some submarine crumbled and a bunch of rich people died, then maybe it's a sink for you. But I think this is overall a swim.
I'm gonna give this sink a swim, because even though it's sunk, I think that I might complain of being a little long, but that's just me being like, rigid old man. Come on, man, make it shorter. These new order. I shouldn't even complain. We've watched like 12 hours. Like the Idaho stuff was like 12 hours, so I should just calm down. I did like that I got to understand what happened, especially when you hear all this conspiratorial stuff that may or may not have played a part, but you broke it down the best. It was some billionaire punk rock guy that was just like, "Yeah, dude, I can make a submarine and we go see the Titanic." And I think what makes it swim for me is that it paints that picture perfectly, where now we know, like, this is what happened. This is not like some crazy grand conspiracy. It's just some guy that decided to let his ego and wanted to run wild and have a pissing contest against the world. And like, I can do this. I'm going to do everything against the grain and I'm going to make it.
Or is that the conspiracy that they want you to believe so that you don't try and make your own submarine and send it down and investigate? Because I do got to touch on some of those conspiracies before we wrap this one up. Here, first of all, it's a public incentive to show, hey, if you do this without being certified and without going through all these proper government channels, then you shouldn't be doing this at all, even though technically you're allowed to. There might even be a law they pass because of this at some point to prevent you from doing it yourself. What are they hiding on the ocean floor? The other ones too is just that there's this alchemical reference to a shamir, and in a Shamir was this little device. It was like a little slug-looking thing that if you look at a picture of the Titan craft, it looks like this freaking Shamir. And it was something that King Solomon used to build Solomon's temple. It could cut through stone. It could cut through all. So it was like this next level technology that was used to go all over the place. So I got to just throw out two of my favorite ones. And then the third one is that the people on board were somehow taken out by some ruling faction elite that was against them, so that this was all originally planned to like wipe competing factions and elite circles out. I don't think any of those are necessarily true, but I love the conspiracy angle of it.
On the horizon, what do we got up next?
Yeah, we got another mainstream one. It's a mom that like catfishes her own daughter or something. Or did I just spoil it in 3 words or 4 words?
Yeah, but it's kind of like all over TikTok. If you're on TikTok and you're into true crime or anything like that, I'm sure you already know about this. This thing was like viral fire everywhere on your algorithm if you're in that range. That's how I found out about it, by people in my circle. I'm like, oh, what is this? And I was like, well, let's take a look. And I think it will be pleasantly surprised.
Well, speaking of algorithm, this video should help do the trick, but you got to do your part and do the little thumb and the bell and the subscribe thing and add a comment. Do all the things that we're telling you to do, so that this gets into the normie world and we can start getting people to watch more Loose Change.
That means share. Go to paranoidamerican.com. Go to killthemockingbirds.com. Help support. But the most important, share the show. Let's break the normies' minds. This is another episode of Under the Docks. Peace.
Under the docks, yeah, under the docks. Buried deep, but we're breaking the locks. Footage got clipped, they erased all the shots. Stay connected dots. Under the docks, under the docks, yeah, under the docks.
Ready for a cosmic conspiracy about Stanley Kubrick, moon landings, and the CIA? Go visit nasacomic.com.
nasacomic.com, CIA's biggest con. Stanley Kubrick put us on, that's why we're singing this song. I'm nasacomic.com. Go visit nasacomic.com. Go visit nasacomic.com. Yeah, go visit nasacomic.com. Oh, nasacomic.com, CIA's biggest con. Stanley Kubrick put us on, that's why we're singing this song. I'm nasacomic.com. Go visit nasacomic.com. Go visit nasacomic.com. Yeah, go visit nasacomic.com.
Never a Straight Answer is a 40-page comic about Stanley Kubrick directing the Apollo space missions.
Yeah, go visit nasacomic.com.
This is the perfect read for comic, Kubrick, or conspiracy fans of all ages. For more details, visit nasacomic.com.
Paranoid. Yo. I scribble my life away, driven to write the page. Will it enlighten your brain? Give you the flight, my plane, paper the highs ablaze. Somewhat of an amazing feel when it's real to real. You will engage it. Your favorite, of course, the Lord of an arrangement. I gave you the proper results to hit the pavement. If they get emotional, hey, maybe your language, a game, how they playing it well without Lakers. Evade them, whatever the cost, they are the shapeshift. Snakes get decapitated, met is the apex. Execution of flame you out, nuclear bomb. Distributed at war, rather gruesome for eyes to see. Max them out, then I light my trees. Blow it off in the face, you're despising me for what though? Calculated and rather cutthroat. Paranoid American must be all the blunt smoke for real. Lord, give me a day away, vacate. They wait around to hate whatever they say. Man, it's not in the least bit. We get heavy rotate when the beat hits, so thank us, you're welcome. Fuck the niggas for real, you're welcome. They ain't never had a deal, you're welcome. Man, they lacking appeal, you're welcome. Yet they doing it still, you're welcome.